A simple elderly woman kicked out of a shop returns with police and lawyers. Margaret Wilson shuffled slowly toward the glass doors of Brennan's designer boutique on Madison Avenue. At 78, her arthritic hands gripped a worn leather purse that had seen better days than most. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the busy New York street as shoppers hurried past her figure. She paused to catch her breath, smoothing down her simple floral dress that she'd worn for 20 years. Through the window, she spotted a navy blue scarf that would be perfect for her granddaughter's birthday. The price tag made her wince, but Sarah deserved something special after graduating from nursing school. Margaret pushed open the heavy door, a small bell announcing her arrival to the nearly empty boutique. The store's interior gleamed with polished marble floors and crystal chandeliers casting rainbow light. Soft classical music floated through speakers hidden among displays of silk scarves and leather bags. A young saleswoman with perfectly styled blonde hair looked up from her phone behind the counter nearby. Her name tag read Ashley in elegant script, and her expression shifted from boredom to visible disdain. Margaret felt the woman's eyes travel from her gray hair to her modest dress and scuffed orthopedic shoes. The temperature in the room seemed to drop as Ashley's glossy lips pressed into a thin, unwelcoming line. Margaret pretended not to notice, focusing instead on the beautiful scarves displayed on golden stands. "Excuse me, dear," Margaret said softly, approaching the counter with measured steps to steady herself. "I'd like to look at that navy scarf in the window display. It's for my granddaughter's special day." Ashley's manicured fingernails tapped impatiently on the glass counter, creating sharp clicking sounds. "That particular item is $350, she stated, emphasizing each word slowly. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable shopping at the discount store down the block instead, ma'am." The condescension in her voice hung heavy in the perfumed air between them, like an invisible wall. Margaret's weathered face flushed pink, but she maintained her composure with practiced dignity intact. "I understand the price. Thank you. I've been saving for months. May I please see the scarf closer?" Ashley rolled her eyes and sighed dramatically, making no move to retrieve the requested item at all. "Look, we cater to a very specific clientele here, and frankly, you don't seem to fit our standards." She gestured vaguely at Margaret's appearance with a dismissive wave of her perfectly polished hand. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave before you make our other customers feel uncomfortable here." Margaret glanced around the empty store, confused by the mention of non-existent other customers nearby. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her purse tighter, feeling the weight of humiliation grow. "I'm sorry, but I don't understand why I need to leave. I haven't done anything wrong in this store." Margaret's voice remained steady despite the painful tightness growing in her chest from the rejection. She had faced discrimination before in her long life, but it never got easier to endure such treatment. Ashley stood up abruptly, her high heels clicking against the marble as she moved around the counter. "Ma'am, I won't ask again. You're clearly not our target demographic. Please exit the premises now." The younger woman positioned herself between Margaret and the scarf display, with crossed arms firmly. Her body language screamed hostility, creating an impenetrable barrier to Margaret's simple request. The boutique door chimed as another customer entered, a well-dressed woman in her 40s wearing pearls. Ashley's demeanor transformed instantly, her face lighting up with a practiced professional smile, bright. "Good afternoon. Welcome to Brennan's. I'll be with you in just one moment after I handle this issue." She turned back to Margaret, her smile vanishing as quickly as it had appeared on her painted face. "Security!" Ashley called out loudly, though no security guard was visible anywhere in the small shop. The other customer looked uncomfortable, averting her eyes from the unfolding scene of discrimination. Margaret felt tears prick at her eyes, but refused to let them fall in front of this cruel young woman. "Please, I just want to buy a gift for my granddaughter. I have the money right here in my purse." Margaret began to open her bag to show her carefully saved cash, hands shaking with emotion and age. "Don't make me call the police," Ashley threatened, reaching for the phone on the nearby countertop. "You're trespassing on private property and refusing to leave when asked by store management staff." The well-dressed customer quietly slipped out of the store, clearly wanting to avoid the confrontation. Margaret's shoulders sagged in defeat as she realized arguing would only escalate the situation further. She turned slowly toward the door, each step feeling heavier than the last as tears blurred her vision. "You should be ashamed of yourself," Margaret said quietly, pausing at the threshold to look back once. "Treating an old woman this way just because of how I look. What would your mother think of you now?" Ashley's face flushed red with anger as she pointed dramatically toward the street outside the store. "Get out! And don't even think about coming back here, or I really will call the police on you today." Margaret stepped onto the sidewalk, the door slamming shut behind her with a violent force that shook. Through the glass, she could see Ashley wiping down the counter as if to cleanse it of her presence. The humiliation burned hot in her chest as passing strangers stared at her tear-stained face curiously. Margaret stood on the sidewalk for several minutes, trying to compose herself as New Yorkers rushed by. Her mind raced with a mixture of hurt, anger, and determination that she hadn't felt in many years. She pulled out her old flip phone and scrolled through her contacts with trembling fingers searching. There it was, the number she never thought she'd need to use again after all these years had passed. "James, it's Grandma Maggie. I need your help with something. Can you meet me at the coffee shop?" Her grandson, a successful lawyer at 35, immediately heard the distress in her shaking voice. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Grandma, whatever it is, we'll handle it together like always." At the corner cafe, Margaret sat nursing a cup of tea while recounting the boutique incident in detail. James Chen Wilson's jaw tightened with each word, his legal mind already analyzing the situation ahead. His mixed heritage had given him his own experiences with discrimination throughout his life and career. "Grandma, what Ashley did wasn't just wrong. It's illegal under federal and state civil rights laws." He pulled out his phone to record her statement, his Harvard law training kicking in automatically now. Age discrimination in public accommodations is a serious violation. "We're not letting this slide today." Margaret watched her grandson transform from loving family member to fierce advocate before her eyes. "I don't want to make trouble, James. Maybe I should just forget about it and shop somewhere else." Margaret's voice wavered with the exhaustion that came from a lifetime of choosing battles carefully. "No, Grandma. You taught me to stand up for what's right. Remember? This is about more than one scarf." James squeezed her hand gently across the table, his determination evident in his focused expression. "How many other elderly people has she humiliated? This ends today. I'm calling my colleague at the firm." Within minutes, he had reached Patricia Hayes, a civil rights attorney who specialized in discrimination. "Patricia? It's James. I need your help with an urgent matter involving my grandmother this afternoon." 2 hours later, Margaret found herself walking back toward Brennan's boutique with a small entourage. James walked on her left, briefcase in hand, while Patricia Hayes strode confidently on her right side. Behind them followed 2 uniformed NYPD officers who had been briefed on the situation thoroughly. "Remember, Mrs. Wilson, you have every right to shop in that store," Patricia reminded her gently now. "We're here to ensure your rights are protected and that this discrimination is properly addressed." Margaret's nervousness was balanced by a growing sense of empowerment she hadn't expected to feel today. As they approached the boutique, she held her head high, drawing strength from her supporters nearby. The bell chimed again as the group entered Brennan's boutique, filling the space with their presence. Ashley looked up from her phone, her expression shifting from annoyance to shock in mere seconds. Flat. Her eyes widened as she took in the police officers, the lawyers in suits, and Margaret standing tall. What's going on here?" she stammered, rising unsteadily from her stool behind the glass counter. Patricia stepped forward, her voice crisp and professional, as she addressed the stunned saleswoman. "Ms. Ashley, I'm Patricia Hayes, attorney at law. We're here regarding an incident earlier today." She placed a business card on the counter with deliberate precision, letting the moment sink in fully. "This woman," Ashley pointed at Margaret with a shaking finger, "was trespassing and refused to leave." "That's interesting," James interjected smoothly, pulling out his phone to show a recording from earlier. "Because, according to witness statements and security footage from the street something else occurred." Officer Martinez, the senior of the two policemen, stepped forward with his notebook already open wide. "Ma'am, we've received a formal complaint of discrimination based on age and economic status today. Refusing service without cause in a public accommodation is a violation of civil rights statutes." Ashley's face had gone pale, her earlier arrogance crumbling like a facade in an earthquake's wake. "I want to speak to the owner," Ashley demanded, reaching for the phone with trembling hands quickly. "That would be me," a deep voice announced from the back office as Mr. Brennan emerged looking stern. He was a distinguished man in his 60s who had been watching everything on the security monitors. "Ashley, I heard and saw everything that happened earlier. Your behavior was completely unacceptable." His disappointment was evident as he approached the group, extending his hand to Margaret respectfully. "Mrs. Wilson, I am deeply sorry for how you were treated in my establishment this afternoon. Truly, this does not reflect our values, and I assure you immediate action will be taken to address this." Brennan turned to Ashley with a gravity that made her step backward against the wall behind her. "You're terminated. Effective immediately. Clear out your belongings and leave your keys on the counter." Ashley's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, no words coming forth from her lips at all. "But, sir, I was just trying to maintain the store's image," she began weakly, grasping for excuses. "By illegally discriminating against customers, that's not an image I want for my business ever." Patricia cleared her throat, drawing attention back to the legal matter still at hand between them. "Mr. Brennan, while we appreciate your response, there are still legal ramifications to address here." "Of course," Mr. Brennan nodded gravely, understanding the seriousness of the situation completely now. "Mrs. Wilson, please, let me personally assist you with your purchase as a small gesture of apology." He walked to the window display and carefully retrieved the navy scarf Margaret had originally wanted. "This scarf is yours with my compliments, and I'd like to offer you a lifetime discount at our store." Margaret touched the soft silk with wonder, but shook her head gently at his generous offer to her then. "Thank you, Mr. Brennan, but I'd prefer to pay for it. I saved specifically for my granddaughter's gift." Her dignity and grace in the moment made everyone in the room stand a little straighter with respect. As Mr. Brennan rang up the purchase at the original price, Ashley finished gathering her belongings sadly. She attempted to slip out quietly, but Officer Martinez stopped her with a raised hand blocking her path. "Ma'am, you'll need to provide a statement at the precinct regarding the discrimination complaint today." The reality of potential criminal charges finally seemed to hit Ashley, as tears filled her eyes fully. "I'm sorry," she whispered to Margaret, though it seemed more from fear than genuine remorse for actions. Margaret studied the young woman for a long moment before responding with quiet strength and wisdom. "Both, I hope you learn from this to see people's worth beyond their appearance or perceived social status." James documented everything meticulously, while Patricia discussed next steps with Mr. Brennan privately. "We'll need to implement discrimination training for all staff," she stated firmly to the owner directly. "And Mrs. Wilson may still pursue civil charges. though that will be her decision to make going forward. Mr. Brennan agreed to everything, seemingly genuine in his desire to make things right from now on entirely. He even offered to personally deliver a written apology to Margaret's home the following day, without fail. As the legal discussions continued, Margaret found herself drawn to a display of vintage brooches nearby. Her granddaughter Sarah had mentioned admiring such pieces during their last Sunday dinner together recently. "Grandma, you did it?" James said softly, coming to stand beside her at the jewelry case with pride evident. "You stood up not just for yourself, but for everyone who's been made to feel less than human by others." Margaret smiled, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and satisfaction from the afternoon's events washing over. "You know, when I was young, we often had to accept such treatment silently without any recourse at all. But your generation gives me hope that things really can change when good people stand up together, strong." The boutique that had felt so hostile earlier now seemed to embrace her with warmth and acceptance fully. Even other customers entering the store looked at her with respect rather than the invisibility of age. A week later, Margaret sat in her living room surrounded by family for Sarah's birthday celebration joyfully. The navy scarf was wrapped in elegant paper, but the real gift was the story that came with it entirely. "Grandma, you're like a superhero," Sarah exclaimed after hearing about the boutique confrontation fully. "With lawyers and police as your sidekicks," her younger brother added with admiration shining in his eyes. Margaret chuckled, adjusting her glasses as she watched her family's faces glowing with pride for her now. "I'm just an old woman who refused to be invisible or dismissed because of someone's prejudice. Dear ones." The local news had picked up the story, sparking conversations about ageism throughout the community widely. Mr. Brennan had followed through on every promise, even featuring Margaret in the store's new ad campaign. The tagline read, "Beauty and dignity at every age. Brennan's boutique welcomes all customers equally." Ashley had been sentenced to community service at a senior center, a fitting consequence for her actions. Reports suggested she was slowly learning to see elderly people as individuals worthy of respect and kindness. James had used the case to launch a pro bono initiative at his firm, focusing on discrimination cases locally. Patricia Hayes became a regular speaker at retailers, associations about inclusive customer service practices. The ripple effects of one afternoon's stand for dignity had spread far beyond anyone's initial expectations. Sarah carefully unwrapped the scarf, her eyes filling with tears as she held the silk fabric gently in her hands. "It's beautiful, Grandma, but knowing what you went through to get it makes it absolutely priceless to me." She draped it around her shoulders, the navy blue complementing her nursing graduation photos perfectly. "Every time I wear this, I'll remember that standing up for what's right is always worth the effort made." Margaret reached out to touch the scarf, remembering the humiliation that had led to this moment of triumph. "You know, dear, sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in the most unexpected packages of all in life." The family raised their glasses in a toast to Margaret, the simple elderly woman who had refused to be simple. Later that evening, as Margaret prepared for bed, she looked at herself in the mirror with new eyes entirely. The same gray hair, the same lined face, the same modest clothing that Ashley had deemed unworthy before. But now she saw what her family saw: strength, dignity, and the power to create change in the world around. Her phone rang with another interview request from a senior advocacy group, wanting to share her story wide. She smiled, thinking of all the other elderly people who might feel empowered to stand up for themselves. The boutique incident had transformed from a moment of pain into a catalyst for positive social change. Margaret Wilson, at 78 eyes, had proven that one person's courage could indeed make a real difference.